From an EQ perspective, I think if you look at our growth curve over the last 3 years, I would expect it to be very similar sometime through this year.
Hello, and welcome to the Market Bull Podcast. Please note, topics and stocks discussed in this podcast are not financial or investment advice. Kevin MacNeill is the CEO of EQ Resources, a tungsten-focused company that's listed on the ASX under code EQR. Now, Kevin spoke about tungsten and the growing applications the resource has in the electrification future. EQ Resources recently acquired Saloro, a leading European tungsten producer, and Kevin discussed the reasons why they did this, the next steps, and Oaktree's involvement in the deal. Kevin also discussed the Mt Carbine project in Queensland, and importantly, what investors can expect in the coming 12 months. Here is Kevin MacNeill.
So hello, I'm Ben Kostrich, and this is the Market Bull Podcast. Joining me today remotely from somewhere in Queensland is Kevin MacNeill, the CEO of EQ Resources, which is listed on the ASX under code EQR. It's had a fair bit of news and activity to start the new year, and it's in the tungsten area of the market, which I'm sure many may or may not be familiar with, but Kevin's going to talk about it all in the recent acquisition. So welcome to the show, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks. And I must say, Ben, I'm hailing from the beautiful mining town of Port Douglas. So it's only an hour, 50 minutes away from the mine site. So it's the best mining post I've ever had in my career.
Oh, very nice. And I mean, this is probably going to sound a little bit off the cuff as well. I detect a bit of an accent. Are you traditionally sort of someone that's come overseas chasing the mining? Or I mean, what's your history and how has it planted you in Port Hedland?
Yeah, Port Douglas.
Port Douglas.
Yeah, Port Douglas. Yeah, no. So interesting. I'm a Canadian from the east coast of Canada, Nova Scotia. I grew up there, and I got my mineral and civil engineering technology degrees there. And I've worked mostly in Africa. I've been in Africa since about 1990. And just in the last 4 years, I basically came over to Australia. So I worked for a Canadian mid-tier producer for almost 25 years. We did several gold mines up in West Africa and a diamond mine in South Africa. So I ended up in South Africa living for 18 years. So I have a little bit of a funny accent, I would say, but still the Nova Scotian rides very, very heavy.
Yeah, it's always the about that you can sense there's a bit of an accent, especially as an Australian. But I mean, you've had 30 years dedicated across all sorts of mining, and in particular, I guess project development and in particular minerals processing is something that I read. And you're the CEO. You originally took over in 2019 in May as the interim CEO, and now the full-fledged CEO. I mean, how did that opportunity sort of unfold, and more so the reasons behind you taking that, given that, at the time, tungsten, even now, a few people are probably unaware of its use cases and applications for, the modern world.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. When I left the Canadian mid-tier producer, I ended up working for myself, doing consulting using XRT and EM electromagnetic sorting technology. I became very fascinated from the diamond space, how these machines work. So I set up my own consulting company when Endeavour Mining took us over. So based around sorting in 2009. And so I became fascinated with that. And then about 3 years in, we were doing ferrochrome slag dumps up in Zimbabwe. And I was selling to a company called ProNimet, who is the one of the owners or soon to be shareholders in EQ Resources. So I ended up being their MD in Johannesburg for 5 years. And then I had left them, and they asked me to come back down here if I'd come here for 6 months to run this operation. I've been here for 4 years now in beautiful Queensland, right?
Yeah, 6 months going 4 years as these things happen. And of course, I mean, EQ Resources, I mean, for those that are unfamiliar with the company, as I said, it's listed on the ASX, but I mean, what is the company, and more so, I mean, what is it really trying to achieve in this sort of, mineral exploration and processing world?
Yeah, yeah. Global domination in tungsten, Ben. Let's no, we're a we're not a junior miner coming in. Like we started at Mt Carbine, quite modestly, quite slowly, getting the tailings, and then we went into the waste rock sorting, and then into the hard rock open pit. So we kind of we had some money, we made some money, we put it back into the operation, and then we keep doing this and we keep climbing and climbing. So our capital has been very modest, like that we had to go raise capital. And that comes from being a private company for a number of years where you have to make your own money and,
Mm.
prevent budgets and all that kind of good stuff. So anyway, so that's kind of how we came about it. But and then because we've been successful at Mt Carbine with our recoveries, we attracted a fair bit of attention in the tungsten industry, and we attracted Saloro's attention, or Oaktree, who are struggling with their recoveries. They were doing 90% right on the Saloro operation, but they struggled getting recovery in their tungsten operation. So when we went to do the due diligence in the first year, we weren't ready for it. And we said, sorry, but we're not really, we need to get Mt Carbine settled down first, and then we'll come back. And then 6-8 months later, they asked again if you guys would come and do a due diligence, which we did. And then, yeah, we had a really good culture fit. I don't know if you've been through any of these things, but you kind of have to have a culture fit with the other company or they don't really work, right? So
Mm.
we had a really interesting DD with the management, and we found them very competent. It just needed some skills in XRT sorting, which we felt is going to be a turnaround for that operation in Spain, increasing the recovery. So we put one sorter in, and now we're just installing the second sorter in there. Plus we tweak the jigs and the spirals and all the good things that kind of EQ has skills in, but again, they have skills in mining and a lot of other areas that are complementing each other, and they're people. And so, yeah, it was a really good fit.
Yeah, we'll dive more into that acquisition and I guess the synergies that will emerge. But more so, I mean, to set the scene for tungsten, I mean, many will maybe have connotations that it's part of the Rare Critical Minerals Act in the USA, and there's definitely use cases for it. And I've spoken with others about its potential use in nuclear fusion reactors, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of talk about nuclear now as well. But I mean, more so when you're setting the stage for the role and the use cases for tungsten, I mean, where do you really see that emerging and growing, and I guess really setting the precedents for EQ Resources?
Yeah, there's some really interesting developments that are happening around tungsten. So tungsten is incredibly dense, and it's very conductive, and it has like the highest melting point of any metal, and it's all the hardest of any metal. So it has some really specific characteristics that have been around for like 300 years. Like that it's been used for in ferrotungsten, and everything. What I try to tell people is tungsten, when you talk about critical metals and you go to the European critical metals, their tungsten is very, very high up on the critical metals list. And why is that? It's because China, Russia, North Korea control over 90% of the world's tungsten. And if they were to shut that off tomorrow, it has some very practical applications like drill bits, right? In all your oil and gas production, every mine site, every grader blade, so there's a little bit of tungsten in everything. And if they were to shut off that supply, certainly manufacturing would take a big hit in all sectors, and including military is one of the biggest growth areas that we're seeing right now coming through the market. The supply market is really just hitting now, surprisingly enough. Last year, a lot of companies destocked, and now they're all rushing to stock as the orders are coming in more and more from the military applications. So yeah, that's kind of what's happening right now in the tungsten space.
Yeah, the applications of I do recall, yeah, the military use cases are quite large and emerging, and I know in particular with Australia's relationship with the US, I know the US have plans to I guess, in-house and use allies to source it, which again is pitting this opportunity for a lot of companies that are looking at tungsten, and yourself clearly at the forefront of it. But we go back to the acquisition, which was, I can take a quote from your extract that this places EQ Resources in quote, the largest independent tungsten concentrate producer outside of China. I mean, that's a massive, massive achievement. And I can imagine there's more work to be done, of course. But I mean, you're going through that, you said that they'd come to it a few times to sort of create those synergies. I mean, what does this now, having achieved this acquisition, what does this mean for the company and I guess the next steps as well?
Yeah, it's a lot of growth very quickly for us, right? So it's been fortunately there's a very strong team at Saloro. Like I said, it just involved a little bit of tweaking. So we beefed that team up with a new candidate that is going to sit heavy on the metallurgical side. Like I said, their mining side, their social side, everything is running really well. It's just the metallurgical side that we found that they had challenges with. So we beefed that up on that on their team. So from a growth potential, so we have to watch we don't overgrow too quickly as well. Like, so we want to settle. We still got a fair bit of work to do at Carbine. We're still on a growth curve at Carbine. We're still on a growth curve at Saloro. So those two operations and need to get seeded in this year. The growth pattern for Carbine in particular is going to be the underground. We're only talking about 50 to 20% of the known resource is in the open pitable reserve. So what we're trying to do is look at that underground more. This year is one of our objectives is to look at the underground more seriously and get into that aspect of it. So yeah, and then at Saloro as well, looking at all the satellite deposits. There's several around there, putting our geologists to work up there and looking in. And the learnings between the two deposits, they're very similar deposits. So they have some learnings. We had some learnings as well.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, Oaktree was a big involvement in getting this done, and you completed the $25 million placement to complete it. But I mean, getting them on and involved as well. I mean, what sort of credibility does that give to current shareholders and also, I guess, potential future shareholders that they're also quite involved in this?
Yeah, I think they should take a lot of comfort. Oaktree, like when we looked at the transaction, Oaktree, the value that they assigned to it was 9 cents a share. We pushed to, we believe our value to give away that much equity. We felt their value wasn't far off that coming up. So that's where we agreed. And they saw this, they love tungsten. They see the future for tungsten. They see a big growth in tungsten, but they weren't getting the value from their mine. And that's where they saw putting the two assets together would have a great value, the two technical teams together, and to really build a force in the largest Western tungsten producer. And so that's where that's where we saw the synergies, right? And then they capitalized us as well, right? They also saw the need for more additional capital injection into us, and thus the 25 million in equity. So they see their growth, like EQ owns 100% of that asset now. So they have to see their growth through the EQ share appreciation. So yeah, so we're looking forward to it. We're working with them very closely and how to achieve that.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, we should say that, yeah, where you're based in Queensland, and this is predominantly based in Spain. I mean, there's a bit of a distance, both time and geographically, of course. But I mean, you're talking about the synergies that you're forming. And I guess you said at the outset that it's almost important that these two had, I guess, those synergies already almost in place. I mean, what other steps do you think are going to be required to really get either the clientele sort of set in stone, or again, it'd be a bit of movement. And of course, like when you're looking at now mapping these two projects out, they're probably at different stages as well. I mean, how are you thinking of balancing that and more so like a timeline? It's pretty difficult to say that, but you know, what's sort of rolling through your head now, considering that you've mostly been focused on the Mt Carbine?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I spent October up in Spain as well, really getting my hands dirty. And anybody that knows me is I'm a hands-on CEO. So I like to understand every detail of the process and the mining. And so mostly we spend our time at the Carbine mine as our head office, we say. But just recently, we've now, because of the Spanish acquisition, we've decided to set up an office finally, right? So we used to work out of the mine site. So Mount Carbine, it needs to grow further with more crushing, more. We need to get more tons through the operation. So that's Mount Carbine, but we have a very set path. We've already purchased the crushing equipment. There's a program to install it. So that's all happening this year at Carbine. Spain is all about the recovery. They have one of the most beautiful plants in the world. You know, it's probably 200 million Aussie has been spent on that plant over the years. And it's just a matter of putting the right pieces together in that operation and also with the technology up front, right? So what we see, one of the issues that we have, not to get too technical, but with scheelite in particular, it breaks very small every time you touch it. So the beauty of the ore sorting is you can keep it up at 30, 40 millimeter size range, take it out and then very gently crush that product downstream. So you don't have to over crush everything to bug dust and then lose it out the back door. So that's where we bring one of our advantages to Saloro is to start to implement that technology that we're so used to in the operation. So, yeah.
And of course, I mean, this is me just thinking now that the strategic placement of having now both a mine and a facility in Australia and also Spain gives ample opportunities to tap into potential government fundings and some of these initiatives that are being set from, top down. Is that another sort of aspect that yes, another part of the team that's not in the mines is also looking at and trying to unpack? Because I know that, Spain itself is probably got opportunities for funding it, and so does Queensland, but more so from the federal governments or the EU, for example. Is that another sort of area that you guys are looking into and trying to find out how it can sort of fit into the jigsaw puzzle of yourselves?
Yeah, 100%. And we've been quite successful in Australia. We've got a $6 million grant from the government. We've had several processing grants on the way through, so we're quite familiar with that. But fortunately, like with Cronimet as now coming on as a shareholder, they're a European German based large. They turn about $4 billion a year in Europe. So they have we've been very close to the German embassy people, with Spain now coming on. So we have a very big European influence in our company, right? So we're not going into Europe completely cold. Like we do have all their back office people working with us. So it's a great help having those two big shareholders, Oaktree in one case, and then Cronimet on the other case, having the two largest shareholders in your company are both European based as well. But Ben, you're 100% right. That's exactly what we intend to do, is to try to leverage as much government funding that's possible at low interest rates out of there. So we did, as you know, like from the announcement, we did take on 35 million euro debt from standard Spanish banks, tier one banks, backed by Oaktree for the next 18 months. Those loans are all guaranteed by Oaktree for the next 18 months. So we have to restructure, and that's part of the game plan, is to look at that restructuring, whether it's government funding or through the banks. But we do have a program in place and people that are actively pursuing that currently to restructure that. So I guess the other thing, just on the company EQ, I know I never really got to it, but EQ has quite a strong board, right? Like and a very active board, like we have a standard once a week meeting type board, right? It's not not official, but which includes Oliver Klein Hempel, which is our chairman. He's also one of the 4 global MDs for Cronimet. Richard Morrow, which is Melbourne Mining Club, broker background. Steve Layton, ZPO, electrical engineer, represents the largest shareholding out of Singapore. And now Stephen Weir has just come on the board with us as well. So we're really excited to have Stephen from a financial point of view. Stephen has a great financial background, right? So we do make our directors work quite hard. We don't tell them that before we get them the nomination, but we do make them work very hard. So So yeah, so it really supports me. I'm more technical. I'm more getting the recovery, getting the operations. So it does help me fill that gap. I must say.
Well, you took the words out of my mouth. That was where I was initially going to be leading into is, of course, that these need the teams, and yeah, they're bringing on the new board members as well, just sort of bolsters the strength of it. And yeah, your history sort of leans itself towards very hands on and about being in the mine and probably living and breathing the sorts of day-to-day operations, and it's literally lifted from your bio. But I mean, you've been there for 4 years now, or probably 4 and a bit years, I should say. It's the years escaping you, I can imagine. I mean, throughout the time that you've been at the company, it's predominantly been on the Mt Carbine Tungsten project, and you've probably been quite instrumental in accelerating it. So for those that are potentially unfamiliar with that part of the business, which was, almost the key, I mean, how has that development really progressed under your tenure as the CEO?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've raised the market cap when I come on. We raised the market cap from like I guess 18 million, 17 million up to 125 or something now, wherever it is, with this new acquisition. But also the share price has gone up with it, right? The share price has gone up 300% over that time period as well, right? So we've been able to manage that, not just straight growth, but also bring the shareholders along with us now. It's not 10 or 20 times, but at least every year we're kind of progressing on the on the way up. So yeah, so and again, it's been, I find these things sometimes get overcapitalized, right? I worry about some of these minor metals get overcapitalized, and then you got to struggle with the banks, and you got to, you know what I mean? And nothing ever runs smoothly. So I think we've taken a little bit of a different approach at it, where we just kind of taken bite sizes, and we've taken a slow ramp up, on Carbine, understanding the issues, the problems, and work through them, on very minor base, right? And then now we're ready to put the next stage in and double the plant capacity one more time, and go forward. So yeah, I think that's how Carbine developed. And Spain, like you said, is more developed. It's got a beautiful plant, right? So now it's more about reducing operating costs, increasing the recovery in particular. We've taken it up from 38% to 55% now, and climbing, right? So we want to get that up into the 70s is where we projected when we took over the operation we would get to.
Interesting. And then, of course, I mean, the next stage is, of course, it's hard to get ahead of yourselves, but the end term or end goal would be some sort of offtake or selling the product. I mean, what are the next stages in that long cycle of, again, then selling on the product? And I mean, are there particular groups that you are thinking of engaging with, or potentially have sort of MOUs with, or I mean, what are the other conversations that are happening in the background?
And yeah, there's lots. We're fortunate because ProNeMet is one of our shareholders. They're a trader, right? So they, at Carbine, they offtake the metal right here. But we've had a great association with Masol or Nuifao in Vietnam, where they were able to ship 100% of our product to them, and they refine it for us. And not only that, they offer us technical assistance. So where we have like 20 tables, they have 300, in the that size of scale, right?
Yeah.
But they have this so we're looking at certainly providing them more concentrate, right? We have a technical association with them, so that's ongoing. So they will basically take everything that we need to offtake. They pay us a good price, but we've also shopped around the market in the US and GTP and Wolfram Bagbow. So there's a few players, few refiners as well, and Saloro in particular, because they have such a high quality product. They develop like a 65% concentrate. We do a 50% concentrate at Carbine. So Nuifao can take ours fine, but they get a premium price for theirs to do that. So yeah, everybody wants their concentrate in Spain.
Yeah, I can imagine that's quite a sort of a statement, and you can see really with the way that the world has been going. You alluded to it with supply chains. We've noticed they can just be shut down on almost a split second based on someone sitting in a chair somewhere, which is a sort of a harsh reality to accept now. And it's sort of about, positioning yourself quite strategically and taking care of the environment at the same time. And I mean, that's why I can, I can see the logo on your shirt, the EQ into the unity. And of course, a big part of that is the ESG and the focus on sustainability. And I mean, when I was on your website, and you can just see it there's a fair bit that you guys are looking to, I guess, do right by the world and the processing and just the full ecosystem. So, I mean, talking about some of those, again, you probably would have come in whilst this whole phase of ESG is really ramped up. I mean, what is EQR really made as I guess, a focus, and some of the, I guess, processes or parts that you've incorporated into your systems?
Yeah, yeah, good question. And for me, we came through a time where you were actually criticized for doing too much ESG or S in particular in Africa, right? So we were a previous company, we were building hospitals and we were doing this and we're doing that. And we were actually taken on by shareholders in shareholder meetings and bankers and whatever for doing too much
Yeah, not
of
spending
that.
it in the
So
ground sort of a thing.
yeah, and it's totally turned over the years, which we felt was right at the time to do that with such need, and it's different needs in Australia, right? Which has been an adjustment for myself, right? Because, it's starving children and whatever, some of the West African countries that we worked in is very difficult, right? Where Australia, it has different needs. And so what we focused on is that our underlying lease is by the Australian Wildlife Conservancy, AWC, and they have a very active programs because we're next to the Daintree rainforest, right? So they have a surrounding area to protect the Daintree on the tableland side of it, right? So we work with them. We have a 19-year agreement with we call Brooklyn, but the Australian Wildlife Conservancy. That's sort of our main push, right? Both scientific and supporting their initiatives, fire break. So we've had a really good relationship with them over the last few years. And then socially, just around we find like we like to put our money in around the communities where we're at, and so that's what I tend to focus on, is more so around the communities. But yeah, and obviously in Australia with the environment and governance being a public company in the ASX, those things are kind of mandated to you, right? So a very high standards, and the same in Spain, like the synergies in Spain, they also are very close to a national park and they have a huge raptor bird program, right? Where they track and trace birds all over the world, right? So that's their sort of social amongst education and schooling with a lot of the children in the area. So yeah, but we enjoy it actually. We actually have active committees. We put out to our shareholders, to our bankers, to everybody surveys to see how we're doing, how they think we're doing. And again, we have some large funds like Oaktree, FAM, a few of the other ones that require this information as well. Like what are you doing? I'm reporting,
Yeah, I can imagine, again, in particular with the acquisition, you've got another sort of area to sort of start learning about and understanding, and a new community to sort of, introduce to the EQ Resources family in a way. And it's, well, I can imagine it's going to be an extremely busy year with plenty of activity. But I mean, from an investment point of view and an investor and shareholder, I always like to sort of refine it, excuse the pun, into, I guess, the three key takeaways that people can expect over the next 6 to 12 months. And I mean, probably I won't put words in your mouth, but there's clearly a big one potentially. But I mean, what are the next sort of, or the three things that people can take away from this conversation and expect that EQR Resources is going to be doing over the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah. Yeah, I think just again, we need to get the production on both operations making money, and being sustainable into the future, and to drive the cost down as low as possible in Spain and at Carbine, right? To try to do those so we can withstand, like it's with China is always, you got to be careful. So you got to operate as low a cost as possible in these particular areas. So I think from an EQ perspective, I think if you look at our growth curve over the last 3 years, I would expect it to be very similar sometime through this year. And I think having the Oaktree on board, we are going to do some more road shows that they want to put us in front of other people. So we now have more of a financial advisor on board to help us do that, to introduce us to some international shareholders. And yeah, just keep mergers, acquisitions, as well as is forefront for us, right? Is to keep growing in that regard. We see ourselves as I think we're getting to a little bit of turnaround specialists. If we can buy stranded, like Oaktree, buy assets that are stranded or in trouble or need some technical support or something that we can add value to, especially with our technology-driven XRT sorting technology. If that's applicable to an operation, we're certainly going to look at it. We're going to focus in 2 hubs, Spain and Carbine in Australia. There's several operations. We got Wolfram Camp, and there's Watershed that's very close to us. And again, in Spain, there's several operations there that are need help. So I think that's where you could probably expect EQ to go over the next year.
And for those that are, I guess, interested in potentially reaching out to yourself, more so following the company's updates, as you do have a very busy year and onwards ahead of you. I mean, where can listeners and viewers go to sort of tap into that information and stay on top of the news?
Yeah, our most active, I would say, Ben, is LinkedIn. Like we have a very active LinkedIn profile. But whether it's other companies that we refer to or whatever, but we do have a very good LinkedIn profile. And I think anybody that wants the most current, up to date, to see how operations are going and pictures and whatever. So we tend to overdo that maybe a little bit, but anyway, I think it's we get a lot of good feedback from that site. And so, yeah, I think that's if anybody wanted to. But look, I'm always find myself available, right? I talk to shareholders a fair bit to answer any questions that they may have on the operation. So I'm always available.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. And of course, as I said, the ASX ticker is EQR. There's always the announcements that go up there. People can add them to their watch list and keep an eye on it, because everyone now has their own daily stockbroking app, I'm sure, personally myself. But yeah, thank you so much, Kevin, for taking the time to speak with me today, and almost taking a 30-minute break away from the mine, which I'm sure you'll be diving back into the plant as we speak. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks for listening to the Market Bull podcast. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow the Market Bull on our socials at Twitter and LinkedIn by searching The Market Bull. You can also subscribe to our newsletter on the website by visiting www.themarketbull.com.au.